All right, welcome to Drkael's pre-raid best in slot gear. This is gonna be a long video. Disclaimer: if you're just gonna start watching this video, this is gonna be a long one, and I'm gonna kind of dive into everything that would be technically for phase 0 of TBC. I've been watching enough beta, talked to enough people, have seen enough numbers to kind of put this together as what I honestly feel will be best in slot for TBC Classic. All right. And then I've also explained previously my map on how to get a lot of my pre-raid, but this is going to be like a dead set hard pre-raid best in slot, farming heroics, farming everything but a raid. There will include some profession items, and if you're tuning in at a later time in TBC, there'll be other things like engineering goggles or dark moon cards and things like that that you could pick up that maybe I won't cover, but again, I might. I'm just going to kind of free talk through a lot of this video. There will be a portion of this video where I'm actually going to go over my 2 specs that I plan on running for TBC Classic as well. And for the most part, if you are savvy with Paladin tanks, I can tell you right now that my Paladin tanking set of choice will most likely not be uncrushable. But again, that all depends on what TBC Classic is versus what it is currently in beta. And of course, if I end up main tanking more bosses than I assume I would with my private server brain, of course, then this set might change, but I will go ahead and include the pieces that I would most likely be wearing outside of a threat set, which I'm assuming I'm going to be wearing for the most part of the expansion. But again, keep this in mind that this is phase 0, and as you start to get raiding gear from T4 into T5, I should be able to achieve a high amount of threat with being uncrushable in that sense. It's just with some of the options I'm currently choosing, they're not the highest defense stats as they are more spell power, stam stats versus avoidance gear. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. We're going to kick this off. We're going to go from head to toes to weapon to shield. A lot of items to kind of go over here, so I'm going to just be throwing things up on the screen here and discussing what I think is going to be the best possible set prior to raid. Some of these will be potentially could be PvP pieces from Arena, which, of course, if you are any form of a serious player, do your weekly Arena matches.
Do it. Lay it out right here. Do it.
And why I say do your weekly arena matches is because the gear is technically free. It might take 10 to 30 minutes of your time a week, but you're going to gain some arena points. And there are items that don't cost arena rating, meaning you don't have to have a rating in order to buy these pieces that may be upgrades if you just don't see yourself getting said item in a timely manner. Whereas other people might fill these slots out with tier 4 pieces, craftables, things like that. But statistically, the PvP weapons are what you're going to be shooting for, but those do require a rating. All right, and with Helms, we're going to go over the 2 options that I have for pre-raid best in slot. One is obtainable from a dungeon, the other one is a craftable from blacksmithing. As in my previous video, I have Helm of the Righteous, drops out of Mechanar, normal, or heroic. This is a very strong go-to piece. It has a meta socket, which would get you 18 stam, 5% stun resist for the meta. You're not going the socket bonus here, so you're just going to gem stamina anyways. This item has a very strong 2-set bonus. The 4-set's really strong too, but to be honest, with this pre-raid BIS list, I'm only going to be obtaining 2 of these pieces. The 2-piece reduces Consecrate mana cost by 15%, and that will go a mile when you're chain running normals or, just trying to do some continuously quick pulls. That mana that you conserve it adds up, and you will feel it when you gain that, and you will feel it when you lose that 2-set bonus. This leads us into the Oathkeeper Helm. Very strong helm, a little less defense rating, a little more spell power, uh, more stamina technically across the board, even over a meta gem, because you would get 3 stam gems. So that comes out to 36 stamina versus 18 plus 12, which is 30 stamina. You get more armor. So I would lean this way. It just all depends on primal mites, right? This is going to be a very expensive piece to craft. But if some of you are drowning in gold and it's burning a hole in your pocket, I would most likely splurge and try to get this helm. There is one fatal downside with this helm, though, that I really do not like. And that thing that I do not like about this is it looks fucking terrible if you have show helm on. Other than that, it is a solid helm. All right, we're going to kind of discuss. I'm going to take a moment, even right after the first item. I'm going to discuss PvP items and the role they play in PvE and why it may or may not be a good idea to substitute some PvE gear for PvP gear. But for the most part, there are items that technically would be upgrades. But if you're compensating a lot of avoidance just to be not critable, that's really never a smart idea. But then again, who knows? Like it might be enough just to your healers could heal through it, but you're pumping threat and your DPS are pumping DPS, and it would allow, maybe for faster kills depending on some strategies. But I'm going to kind of start going over the PvP items. One of the first ones I'll cover is a necklace, but I will put up the few PvP pieces that I would potentially use. Pendant of Dominance is it's actually a really, really good necklace. It's got high stamina, it's got spell power, resilience is there, of course. On any of these PvP pieces I link, resilience is there. We are not a bear druid, okay? So resilience is never the answer for getting crit capped. You would always go defense rating. But these PvP pieces, like, I really like the necklace because it's not a big ticket item and it's a good place to fit in, to take out some defense rating and add some spell power. All right, these are the 3 pieces of Gladiator's gear that I would potentially use, though I really wouldn't ever get. They all have more stamina, they all have more armor than the items I will cover. But again, if you have the defense rating, you have the avoidance, and you can sneak in some of these pieces, you can see they all have a lot of sockets, and that's why I gravitate towards them. Really good spell power. These are the Shockedin kind of PvP pieces, I guess, as I'd call it, but Holy Paladin PvP gear. These would cost a good amount of arena points to get, but again, I would point you in the direction to try to buy the mace, maybe buy a boost if possible in arena, spend some gold to get an arena rating to get a best in slot weapon. But I do like to toss these pieces out here as potential upgrades or high threat items, as they will, they'd be really strong if you weren't raiding, but you were doing a lot of PvP. I just kind of like to toss these pieces out here so people can look and be like, well, why would I use PvP gear in a PvE scenario? But again, if you were farming, like strictly farming, like doing Holy Paladin PvP and then doing Prot Paladin farming, these items are fine, but they bring no avoidance to the table. They're just high armor, which is great, high stam, and good amount of spell power with a lot of sockets. So they are really nice for pushing damage and threat and things like that. They just bring no avoidance to the table, which could be problematic for raids, but it all depends on what you're doing with your main spec versus off spec. All right, I'm having a little fun with these little YouTube clip videos of music videos. Necklace. So we're gonna jump back. Pendant of Dominance will be one of the ones I'll be discussing, as well as I will put a pure defense rating necklace up here on the screen. Necklace of the Juggernaut is the other necklace. All right, while Pendant of Dominance brings 0 avoidance to the table, you've got the Choker of the Juggernaut, which I think brings about 0.6% dodge with that agility. The 22 defense rating, again, I don't have those numbers off the top of my head, but the Choker of the Juggernaut's what's going to get you a little closer to being uncrushable. So again, if you are finding yourself to be crushed more, lean one way. I feel I'm going to be rocking Pendant of Dominance for the threat in this scenario. I will absolutely have both of these. If not, I'll have one of the quest item necklaces that'll keep in my back pocket as well. But these are my two technically pre-raid best in slot. There's the Necklace Op Maiden, which would be probably the first upgrade for threat, or not threat, excuse me, for avoidance. The Barb Choker of Discipline or something like that, which would be the necklace I'd most likely be using if I ended up tanking anything more difficult than ads or normals, maybe heroics. But these two necklaces are on the screen are the two I'm going to be using prior to raiding tier 4. All right, shoulders are pretty quick and easy. Shoulder pads of the righteous are pretty much the only play. If you wanted to drop spell power and become more tanky, you could roll shoulder guards of the bold, which are the warrior set. Wouldn't recommend because in any scenario you can, in like a normal heroic, you could end up just kind of running away versus trying to face tank a lot of damage. You're a paladin. You have increased movement speed. You've got Consecrate. You can drop Judge from outside of melee range. There really shouldn't be a reason you don't use shoulder pads of the righteous, and those come from Botanica. Really, one option only is the Devil Shark Cape. It is the go-to. There, you could use a PvP spell power cloak. You could use any spell power cloak if you wanted to. You could use the armor stamina one. Devil Shark Cape drops out of Steam Vaults off the last boss. Really is the only go-to cloak, and that cloak will last you up until tier 5, in my opinion. I like when we get these really easy ones. Having like one cloak, one shoulder, and now one chest. Chest guard of the righteous. This will complete. This will be your third piece of righteous in this set. But again, if you were going to use a different piece, this would be a go-to, and you could swap out shoulders and helm if you wanted to. But you really want to get that two-piece. Very strong item. Good defense rating. Triple socket. You're going to gem all 12 stam in this whole chest. And this drops from the last boss in Steam Vaults as well. Moving on to wrist. I mean, if you didn't have a Yu-Gi-Oh! Wrist dueler disc thing, were you even cool? We got the Braces of Dignity versus the Braces of Green Fortress. The Green Fortress are amazing bracers up until, they're one of your highest avoidance bracers you can get right off the bat, up until Karazhan Shield Block value bracers, which would have more stam. But the Braces of Dignity is what I'm most likely going to be rolling with because I'm just going to want the pure threat output. So I'll be leaning towards Bracers of Dignity, and I will always craft the Green Fortress bracers. I will always have those up until the bracers out of Tempest Keep off of Void Reaver. I would hang on to them until that point. Moving on to gloves, we really, to me, have one option, even though in reality there technically could be two options. I go with the craftable gloves, and of course these might not be available right away for some of you guys that are pushing like right out the door, running best in slot like before the majority hits 70. There might not be a blacksmith for a few days. You could go with Handguards of the Bold. They're just a little or Gauntlets of the Bold, but their defense rating is moderately lower, and these gloves allow me to get a good chunk of defense rating and that's why I lean for the Fell Steel gloves. They've got 200 more armor, a very little less stam, but pound for pound, I've got Fell Steel gloves as my best in slot pre-raid. Moving on to belts, waist guard, cinch, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I'm also going to take the time during this little segment to talk about uncrushability, which I think I'm going to talk about first. This is my first shield block rating piece. Girdle of the Valorous Deeds is what the belt I have here. I'll be showing the other belt that I would use for a stam set. But this is an amazing belt. Hands down the best belt you can get pre-raid. Though it drops in a very annoying dungeon, it still won't be. I think this is BM heroic. I'm not currently in game, but I can't confirm. But I know it comes from Caverns of Time somewhere. Uncrushability is something where bosses are level 73, and you need 0.8% total avoidance per level. So you need 102.4 then. And shield block rating is pound for pound the best way to get that. Defense rating being the second best stat. So that being said, anything with shield block rating, like I have Breastplate of the Righteous as my best in slot. If you were to pick up the Jade Skull chest piece out of Mechanar, that has a lot of shield block rating, so that would really help with uncrushability. And getting to that 102.4% is how you become uncrushable, if that is what you're going for. And honestly, it's the safe play. And it goes back, it goes 0.8 for every level, and if you're going, that works going backwards too, if you need to calculate, anything else. That being said, Girdle of the Immovable drops out of Heroic Slave Pens. This is a insane belt by itself. Pre-Kara, the Karazhan version is just a super upped version of this. And even with the Karazhan belt, I would still end up using probably Valorous Deeds just for the spell power. But again, you're going to want both. You're going to want a high stam set, potentially, and it never hurts, right? Because if you're getting slapped, throw on more avoidance gear, more stam, and take that gear off as either you get more gear or your healer's just being, a god or something. Then you can cheese and go for more threat. Now, here's something that good buddy Tandor, who I know I'm a better tank than, tossed me. This is from Elitist Jerks that he pulled up and he showed me a while back, but this is something that I always like to toss up. Defense rating versus dodge versus parry. You can see defense rating is just an amazing point for point is your best avoidance stat. To become uncrushable, that is why I mentioned shield block rating, is because just shield block rating gets you the highest percentage. But if you want the most avoidance, defense rating's still the answer. Parry is extremely bad on this list. The one thing, people just shit on parry a lot, but understand if you end up parrying, you get parry haste, which could be a threat gain. That's not too crazy for paladins, as it would be a little more suited towards warriors. And of course, bears can't parry, so that doesn't really apply to bears. So this is just some info to just keep in mind when I'm talking avoidance and things like that. That's the stat weight for avoidance. And I earlier on the screen you saw what I go for to become uncrushable. I still prioritize shield block rating. As the game gets further and further out in phases, I actually end up going for a little more dodge than I normally would. While I will go back to tier 5 and grab Tidewalker's Ring. at some point. I won't take it from a bear or I won't take it from a warrior out the door, but I will be, I would get the third one if there's 3 tanks in my raid. And to give credit where credit is due, it looks like Qui-Gon was the guy that started that guide and gave that information.
If you ever get into trouble, all you need to do is...
Feels like I'm wearing nothing at all. Nothing at all. Nothing at all.
Stupid sexy Flanders!
Time Warden's legs are the answer here. You can do Fell Steel legs, but these are honestly the most stam you're going to get. Defense dodge is super high avoidance for stat-wise. Triple socket, which makes your stamina even higher. And you'll use these pretty much up until Curator legs, or do I dare say T4 legs, which I'm not a fan of. But again, if I'm going for spell power, maybe. Time Worn ones are pretty easy to get because you'll probably be working on getting the Continuum Blade anyways.
In his wee little boots.
Alright, talking about boots now, the one thing I kind of want to stop and go over is what I'm about to show on the screen, which really bothers me. Here we have a video that tells people to go engineering enchanting, and then tells people to get Boots of the Protector, tells people to go deep into the ret tree to get improved ret aura, and then get Pursuit of Justice, but then tells people to craft blacksmithing only boots, and go ahead and put Boar's Speed on them, while having Pursuit of Justice, which is a terrible, terrible fucking idea. Don't do that. Boots of the Righteous Path are your go-tos here. Good defense rating. They got spell power. If you're going for more stam set, you can get the Boots of the Colossus. 2 sockets, high stam, little less defense rating, but again, they'll get you that HP you might be looking for. Moving on to rings with Tom Brady showing off, the fact that he's the GOAT. Gonna go over 2 spell power rings and 2 avoidance rings here. I lean for one of each. You might have... Ideally, you're gonna pick up the Karazhan Honored ring pretty quick for a defense rating ring. So I may or may not buy the badge ring right away if I'm going to quickly get into Kara. The Elementium band is really, really strong, though, for avoidance. And the Black Pearl, I actually go for, depending on how spell hit comes into play and if I'll end up needing it. Like, if I'll need the 6% or not, then I would go for the Cenarian Expedition ring for my spell power ring. And most likely while farming, after I get a little amount of gear, I'll be running double spell power ring for farming. And again, if I'm getting hit by, a hard-hitting mob or whatever, it's always good to have 2 sets of rings, or maybe roll double avoidance rings, depending on how hard some certain things are hitting. Because rings are going to bring, not crazy amounts of spell power, but I will have enchanting, so I know on any ring I'll have all the combined total of 24 spell power, regardless of what rings I'm currently wearing. Alright, moving on to trinkets. I'm going to first start off for all you try-hard prop pallies that want to be the best of the best, you're going to level jewel crafting. You're going to drop jewel crafting after you get these trinkets. There is a ret trinket you can craft as well, the Shadow Panther. This is 2 trinkets. You craft them. They don't require jewel crafting to equip. You can literally level it up, craft them, drop jewel crafting. You can throw if the 18 stam gem is in the game at launch, you can throw that in one of your pieces too. Ideally, maybe your tier 4 shoulders, because those will last a very long time. But if not, put that 18 stam gem in something that will last a while. But again, that's if it's out on launch, which it may or may not be. I'm not sure yet. These trinkets, the one is a great stam. You get stam, int, really good. On use, it's a 5-minute cooldown. 150 spell power, just an insanely fucking good trinket. Again, you get stam, you get int. Int is always nice, but the on use with a stam trinket is it's so godly for prop paladin. The other one is like a Morose's pocket watch, except instead of dodge and dodge on use, this is defense rating with dodge on use. And again, still a very strong trinket to use as well. Moving into our next three trinkets, you've got the Adamantite Figurine from Shadow Labs. Armor on use, pretty good trinket. Just really good for defense rating. Stylines, if you happen to have Stylines from Classic, I personally am going to try to get this. Even at 70, I'll probably be trying to get Stylines because I'll want it anyways. Very, very strong trinket. Block value, block rating, defense rating. It's got it all, man. It's just an insane trinket. And then for my threat, I'm going Icon. Don't go pick Icon up right away. Make sure you're spending your badges properly. Get that one towards the end. But you're going to want Icon for threat. It's just spell power with spell power on use. Goes good with, all your cooldowns, popping wings. When certain mobs spawn, a 2-minute cooldown's pretty short. So on a fight like Tidewalker where Murlocs are coming in, you'll be able to use it, once or twice, maybe 3 times if it's a slower kill. Hydros adds, again, I think that fight's going to be really short on Classic. But again, if it goes longer, you might have that on use that you can use more than once in one fight. The reason I'm showing you so many different trinkets is I will always keep all my trinkets. You never know if you're going to need them for different fights, different scenarios where maybe armor's better, shield block rating's better. I don't have Figurine of the Colossus up here because I probably won't be using that while raiding. But again, it's Figurine of the Colossus. Figurine of the Colossus is a very strong trinket when trying to get uncrushable because it has all that block rating. Ideally, like I said in the beginning of this video, I'm not going for uncrushable, I don't think. But if I want to be uncrushable, maybe I'll toss in the Figurine of the Colossus, but I don't really feel it fits into this video as I'm not positive I'll be using it for coming into raid. And even though I'm not positive I'll be using that trinket for going into raids, there are pulls in Karazhan where I'm pulling like the whole audience room to Opera event. That's where you're going to want like a shield block rating, shield block value set. That on use will actually moderately heal you a good amount. So there are times where I'll just have trinkets in my bags. I'll swap them out maybe for one specific pull, and then, they've served their use, and then I put on a different trinket. I'm constantly always swapping my gear, usually in a raid, for certain pulls and certain bosses, and I think it's a strong idea that you do the same as well. Almost done, guys. Now we're on Librams. I'm not going to be like said YouTuber and tell you to go get the Black Temple Libram on Phase 0. So the 2 Librams we're going to discuss is the Libram of the Eternal Rest and Libram of Repentance. One is from Badges of Justice, which should be your first 15 badges, should absolutely be spent on that Libram. It's going to greatly help the amount of damage you take generically across the board for any of the more difficult heroics. As you get more geared, you could drop that, go back to your Consecration, Libram of Eternal Rest, and you'll use that for farming, most to normal grinds. Try to get that Libram as early as possible. That way, if you are dungeon grinding, it's going to give you a substantial amount of AoE threat if you end up stacking a AoE comp for leveling, which you probably should. Easy peasy one is the shield. Run heroics, get badges, buy the shield. I have this better than the Shatar one. It's a preference, but if you're going stamina, get the Shatar Exalted one and then double stam double stam gem that. That one would be okay if you did level jewel crafting to throw that big 18 stam gem, again, if it's in the game, into that shield as well. But either of those shields are fine in that scenario. Well, we made it to the final one, which is weapons. I say weapons, even though I will tell you what I think best in slot is, but I'm going to kind of go over options here. Of course, you're not going to have access to epics right out the door. Continuum Blade, I've gone over, is a really strong option. You'll have Mana Wrath and Great Sword of Horrid Dream. Great Sword of Horrid Dream is the highest spell power blue weapon you can get, I'm 90% sure. If it's a later phase and you can get the shield block rating sword that has 121 spell power, go ahead and grab that. But I'm going to be going for spell power, meaning there are 2 rep items, which I'll be posting here on the screen, that are both require exalted with either honor hold or thrallmar, or scenario or lower city, would be the mace. When it comes down to pick between these 2 weapons, spell power is the same, attack speed's different, stamina stats are different. I'm going to go for stamina, so I'm going to go for the mace. The slower attack speed if Seal of Vengeance is in the game for Horde, but if it's for Alliance, a slower attack speed should have a higher proc rate on it, is always been my assumption. But other than that, they're really a horse apiece. You really just want them for their spell power. And then that'll actually lead me into what the true best in slot item is, and that is the Gladiator's Gavel. This will be the first thing I buy with arena points, so I will be pushing ret gear quickly, trying to get a 1850 rating, hopefully in 5s, and then within 2 or 3 weeks, I'd be able to pick up the Gladiator's Gavel. Upon picking up Gladiator's Gavel, this most likely will last me. If I decide to get the Season 2 mace, great. If not, the Gladiator's Gavel should most likely take me all the way to the Hyjal mace, and then eventually the Archimonde sword. Well, that was, it only took about 31 minutes to get to the end of that, but I have kind of went over all the items that I'll be having. Will I have these all prior to raiding, like Karazhan? Probably not, but you know, if it was gated for a few weeks, 100% I would. So if this is just a list for you to kind of work at, maybe you have a prop pally alt, great. But again, like you'll get Kara gear pretty quick, where it might cut out some of these pieces as well. So another thing I would like to kind of talk about is my spec that I'll be using. So here I'm going to start pulling things up. I'm going to post the 2 specs that I'm going to most likely be using, either A or B. And then at that point, I'd be open for discussion in the comments, or if you guys have a different build. Tandor has a crazy Vengeance build, which I don't know if I'm going to break out, but if threat is an issue or if it's absolutely needed, then maybe I'll try building a deep ret Vengeance Prot build, but we'll see. Alright, the first build here is my threat build. Now there's some different things that I may or may not do depending on this. I lose 6% stamina, not maxing out combat expertise. Again, I don't really think this is going to be a problem while raiding. Now, the one thing I might change in this is in the ret tree in tier 2, I have the Imp Judgment of Crusader, which I'll be putting some arrows up on the screen here. I might swap that to Vindication. Now, if Vindication is proccing extra Seal of Light, Seal of Wisdom procs, even if the boss is immune, it still may proc them. I was finding some old videos of this actually being true in Sunwell when it was happening. A Rep Paladin was using Vindication and getting, like, if it would proc, it said immune, but then he'd get a Seal of Wisdom, a Judgment of Wisdom proc back to him, which could help with mana. Judgment of Light's really not going to change much, but it might be really strong. I just haven't seen enough of this, and I don't think I've seen anybody testing this type of thing. But this is kind of the things, if God forbid I was ever given beta, I would have been testing. You could go in for Conviction for some crit, but really, no, just don't. I have Imp Crusader, just in case my Rep Pally dies. That's 3% crit for the raid. Or if I'm tanking a different mob and my Rep Pally's somewhere else, it's always nice to have Imp Judgment of Crusader. And just be very cognitive of whether to keep up Crusader versus Judgment of Wisdom. As a prop pally, if you see your hunters for whatever reason are starving on mana, get Judgment of Wisdom up, or make sure your Holy Paladin's keeping it up. You know, be the big brain there and kind of pay attention to that. I would assume most boss fights are going to be shorter than what I'm used to, so most likely Imp Judgment of Crusader should have priority over Seal of Wisdom. Alright, Spec 2, this has Ardent Defender. This doesn't have Reckoning. If you were going to go the more safe build, but you also kind of wanted to do some farming, Maybe drop 1 point out of combat expertise and put that into reckoning. If you want to just have a nice even split. This also, while I say it is the safer build, this does not have parry maxed out. I still usually want Imp Judgment for threat, especially if I'm doing any type of single target in the ret tree. I'm going to want Imp Judgment, which is tier 2. I will also put some arrows pointing up to it. Both specs have Pursuit of Justice. You need movement speed. You need movement speed. You fucking need movement speed. Put your Nikes on. Across the board, movement speed, that 15% Pursuit of Justice can get you out of so many sticky situations. You'd be surprised if properly, if you understand how to kite or do things like that, or once you get comfortable kiting mobs, you'll love it. You will love Pursuit of Justice. You'll never not have it. You will never need boar speed on your goddamn boots. You can just go pure stamina on your boots, which is also nice. So this is just a little safer build. Ardent Defender, if you feel you need it. I'm not a huge fan of this, but early heroics, you might see me in this spec, honestly. Just depending on how hard bosses are hitting or what kind of comp I have. So this is just a spec that I would feel a little more safe, being prepared to take more damage. Again, you could drop Imp Judgment and get 5 of 5 parry for 2% more avoidance. So it's all up to you. Kind of play with it, figure out how much damage you're taking, and see what you can get away with for sacrificing survivability for maybe some damage in certain cases. Ooh! That would pretty much be the wrap. That was a long video. I kind of didn't like making it, but guess what? We made it. Or you guys made it. You did it. You made it through the end of it. Again, guys, I try to reply to every comment on YouTube, assuming it's not thousands and thousands. Kind of weird if it ever was, but if you have opinions and things like that, please, I'd love to discuss. I actually love sitting in bed, usually at night, and going through comments. A lot of trolls, which I love you guys too. You guys know I click. Everybody knows I click. They've been dying down, but I still welcome you guys. Toy House, if you fix your videos, I will take the disses out of my video, because you showing 90,000 people wrong information is honestly, shit should be just taken off YouTube. You say you scour the internet, but you really didn't. Other than that, guys, I love making these videos. The next one like this will be like phase 1. So best in slot, all of tier 4. So you'll see a lot more epics and things like that. And I'll progressively keep doing these. I'll do best in slot with all of tier 5, all of tier 6, and then end game at some point. But when you get to that gear level, you'd be looking at doing like, some crazy pulls in BC for some maybe crazy gold making. Like, if you could pull Underbog in like, I don't know, 5 or 6 pulls as a prop heli, it'd be pretty cool. But I'll be playing around with things at that point. I would like to be the leading prop paladin when it comes to farming, but I promise you guys there's going to be other nerds out there that are going to figure out some crazy good farms for prop heli. I will most likely mimic them. I'll give credit where I first find it. So this is kind of the Paladin pre-T4 phase 0 best in slot list that I will most likely be shooting for. As a reminder, please, guys, keep doing arena. Get on a 5s team with friends. 5s should give the most arena points. Get your 10 games in. Other than that, I look forward to seeing you guys in TBC Classic. And if you guys didn't know, we are playing on Scarum Horde. And this is also a friendly reminder, if you happen to play Twinks in the 29, 39, 49 bracket, feel free to hit me up, because we're going to be taking that seriously as well too.